Sarah, thank you for the great session. Really great insight. Just to introduce myself, I'm Voula Hantziantonakis. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here in EMEA, and I'm happy to be hosting our next panel, How I Use Intent-Driven Data. And what we're really trying to delve into today is, how does intent fuel our marketing strategy? And if you're shifting into that approach, what are some starting points, some things you need to think about to use it effectively? So often we have clients where, they either don't understand why intent is so essential for today's B2B marketing realm, or, they get started on it but don't know how to use it in the most effective way. How do I use intent to fuel ABM strategy, nurture versus sales outreach, generate better sales engagements, generate better demand generation? And this is really some of the points that we want to discuss today with two of our very lovely clients and partners. So we have Jonathan Ridley, who is the Enterprise Marketing Manager, UKI at Veeam Software, and Matt Laybourn, who is the Global Head of Performance Marketing at Direction Group, our partner for today's event. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. So just to start off, if you could please give a quick introduction to your role, what you do, and your current experience with intent-driven data and how it ties into your marketing plans.
Sure, I can go first. Yeah. So, Jonathan Ridley, as you can see, Enterprise Marketing for the UK and Ireland at Veeam Software. So a bit of background about Veeam. Many of you may not have heard of us. We are a $1 billion software company, and it's essentially data backup and data recovery. So it's not particularly sexy as such. We're not in artificial intelligence, we're not in IoT, data analytics, reel off the next buzzword. We're not in that sort of industry. But what we do is we underpin all of that. So let me give you an example. Someone wakes up in the morning and says, "Hi Alexa, what's the weather?" And Alexa says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, the servers are down, so give me half an hour and I'll come back to you on that one." Or you're driving a smart car and it pulls over to the side of the road and it says, sorry, just got to stop you here. The servers are down, we haven't backed up our data, so we'll be about half an hour and we'll get back on the move. So it's not particularly sexy, exciting product, but it really does underpin the exciting technologies, as well as, of course, normal business continuity, so that all your everyday data and apps, etc. And I would compare marketing and selling data software to insurance. I'm really selling my role here, aren't I? Everyone has insurance. Let's take car insurance, for example. Every company, whether it's a one-man band or a multi-billion-dollar, FTSE 100 company, everyone has data backup. So there's two ways, really, that we need to try and crack the companies that we're not working with. One is understanding their contract end dates and all the information around who the vendor is, what their technology setup is, et cetera, and the other way is to look at new projects that they're running outside of the normal. So it could be a move to Microsoft Office 365 that needs data backup, or it could be, let's think of another example, of two companies merging, and they need to consolidate the data into one data center. So it's looking for the new projects that are outside of normal business. And in a nutshell, TechTarget can give us some of these insights into which companies are active in the market, and that's absolutely invaluable for us. So that's me in a nutshell.
Hi, I'm Matt. So I look after, basically all of the performance marketing at Direction Group. So originally kind of from the strategy team, I look after all of our demand generation activities across numerous clients. So we work with the likes of Microsoft, Fujitsu, Citrix, Sennheiser, just to kind of name a few. So our journey with intent is kind of a story of keeping us relevant as an agency in the market. I think we kind of spotted a few years ago, it's all very well just always targeting sort of demographic and firmographic stuff on our whole accountable market. But that doesn't really give us an edge when we're actually trying to get the most money back for our clients and actually get them a good return on their investment. So how can we do something a lot more relevant? How can we find the people who are actually interested? Because not everyone always wants to hear about IoT when they're scrolling through their LinkedIn. So, that's where the intent journey started with us, and there have been other vendors who have gone, and we purely love TechTarget, obviously. But that's where we've had, really positive experiences over the last couple of years in kind of working with that intent and using it in lots of different ways as well to fuel different types of programs from, I appreciate we might go on to this, but big demand generation campaigns across global markets, right down to targeting one company in the UK and how do we get in the door there. So, yeah, that's us.
Excellent. As far as account-based marketing goes, I don't think there's a single client that I work with that doesn't have a focus on this. How does intent-driven data apply to your ABM plans currently?
Happy to go first. Yeah, so in terms of our marketing at Veeam, there has been a shift. I'm sure many of you guys are going through this or have gone through this towards, of course, ABM, account-based marketing. So we sort of, again, I'm sure everyone knows the triangle, the sort of one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many. And we try and, based on resources and budget, of course, we try and do a light touch of each of those. So an example from last year was what we call the Deal Acceleration Program. So we looked at some accounts where we had a large opportunity that was either stuck or stale, and we partnered with the sales account managers to create a marketing campaign, a small account-based marketing, one-to-one, highly personalized campaign to support those deals through to close one. So obviously using the intent-driven data from TechTarget, we looked at the things like which contacts that we can use for the decision-making unit from a more senior perspective. We looked at the topic interest, so what they were searching for, what they were actively interested in. We looked at the vendor interest, perhaps a vendor's kind of sneaking in under the radar, and we need to be cautious of that. And we also looked at the technology install base, which was really important. And I should probably mention there's a few sort of friendly faces in the audience. So Veeam partners closely with the likes of HPE, NetApp, Cisco, to name a few of the people that are here today. So another thing that we could do using TechTarget and the intent and the insights was to understand which alliance partners are active and also which competitors are active in the account already. And we can buddy up with the alliance partner to create a better story. So Veeam and NetApp better together, Veeam and HPE better together, Veeam and Cisco better together. And we can also look at some competitive pitching notes if there are competitive footprints within the account as well. Mm-hmm. So I can't give the name of the account, but it's the third largest retailer in the world, largest in the UK, so that probably narrows it down a bit. That was one of the 4 accounts on the Deal Acceleration Program. And I'm really pleased to say that last week it closed as the UK's largest deal for Veeam ever in the enterprise space or in any space. Now, I'm not sort of sitting here today telling you that because of this campaign and because of TechTarget, that deal went from stuck to closed one. That's not fair. This was part of a larger jigsaw, but TechTarget and the campaign absolutely did play a part in going higher and wider into the account, understanding not just what we thought their interests were, but actually understanding it from external sources like TechTarget and all the websites. And it played a critical part and has been acknowledged by the senior leadership as an important part in winning the deal. The other 3, one's hopefully going to close in the next few days, and the other 2 are still sort of live but rolling. So some really good examples there. This year, what we're doing is we're flipping it over, so using the same framework, a highly personalized campaign, multi-touch, into one account. But we're flipping it over from rather than deal acceleration, we're going to net new accounts. So we're looking at accounts we're not engaged with. And again, exactly the same principle. We're looking at using TechTarget Priority Engine to understand what their interests are, which competitors are potentially in the account, which alliances are in the account, and really sort of shaping the messaging, the content, and the outreach and the plans using the TechTarget insights. And then from a perspective of the sort of vertical marketing, we've identified financial services, retail and manufacturing, and central government. And again, we're sort of partnering up with some alliances on this as well, but we're using TechTarget insights from those industries. And another thing that we do with the support of TechTarget is upload lists. So the financial services target account list into Priority Engine, and we can see, hey presto, we can see which ones are actively searching on different content related to backup and recovery. So we use it across a sort of a range of different account-based marketing tools and disciplines.
So I have 2 examples, if I may. First of all, is kind of looking at the programmatic side of things at the very kind of the thick end of the triangle, the ITSMA pyramid, so to speak. And so much of this is, I suppose, this piece is really around kind of just really effective media planning. And for anyone who's like met me before or ever seen me talk about anything, my favorite all-time statistic is Dave Trott's statistic that 89% of advertising is either not remembered or not even noticed. And we're in a competitive space, so it's all very well kind of creating this, beautiful campaign or this program, all the fantastic content at the top of the funnel, and then to try and deliver it to everyone at once. So that's played such a huge part in that kind of that top part of it. I know one of our clients is here, funnily enough, but that top part of the programmatic space, when you look at the ITSMA pyramid, is just how can we actually get the most for our budget? How can we do really effective media planning? And it just leads to better conversion rates. We're getting more people into the top of the funnel, and we're actually targeting people who are in market and at the right point in their sales cycle. So that's the thing we're doing for a couple of our different clients. But my absolute favorite example of where we've used TechTarget data is working for Microsoft. So we've been engaged with them for a couple of years, doing a lot of their one-to-one strategic ABM stuff, and that's like where the really exciting stuff is. This is a huge account that we're trying to break into for them, and a huge opportunity for those teams as well. So we looked at that at the very beginning and said, how do we do that? This is such a monumental task. There are so many decision makers when you're targeting a corporate organization. So we just went back with intelligence and data. We just need to find everything we can on that target account. So first of all, we set up a lot of web crawls, and we're constantly searching for any mention of that particular account, any mention of particular stakeholders, of technology, of their competitors. And that's quite an easy thing to do, just setting up various RSS feeds and filtering through them. But then we needed an extra layer to kind of blow their mind a little bit. I'm really overselling this now for TechTarget. But that's where we were like, we need to actually know who to speak to in those accounts, because that's really hard. Because I can't just target, CIO at a bank in England. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to find that person, especially digitally. That's going to be really challenging. So we kind of took a step back and started working with Lindsay, very specifically on this one. How do I find the right people in that account? And we actually, I suppose we bought deal data before you started selling deal data. So we started forming decision-making units and understanding who these little pockets of people are within that target account who are researching at the moment, and what is their relevance to the bigger picture. But it allowed us really easily, because we're working literally on a one-to-one basis, to start thinking, okay, I know who my decision-making unit is, I know what they're interested in, I know who's influencing that decision as well in terms of their competitors, and now I can build a value proposition because I know what hurts them as well. Not that that's necessarily what you have to aim for, but it sometimes gets a reaction. But we can start to build a really nice value proposition going into that account. So it kind of got really kind of creepily in depth, how we found little bits of information out and the stuff that we wanted to exclude from the campaign. But the really nice end result of it is that enabled us to kind of start producing some stuff to amplify Microsoft story into that account. Some really high impact, personal kind of DM things that went into that account. And it's opened up a really big opportunity for them to kind of respond to some absolutely massive opportunities. And again, Microsoft selling Azure and things like that, there's just a huge opportunity there. So yeah, that shows it kind of, I hope it gives a nice example of from the very kind of top, trying to target everyone right down to how do I get to that one person and how do I know how to speak to them? What's the exact story I need to deliver to them?
Thank you. And Jonathan, you mentioned the one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many, the ABM pyramid earlier on. And just to give some context, he's referring to the ITSMA ABM pyramid. If anybody's not aware of them, they are the UK's foremost authority on ABM. In last year's summit, we actually had their Senior Vice President, Bev Burgess, present a session on the ITSMA ABM pyramid. That content is available online if anybody is interested in exploring and looking at it. You can certainly find me during the break, and I can show you where to find the content online. Now, in general, beyond ABM, how have you guys been using the data intent, the install base, the purchase behaviors, the topic interests to meet your overall marketing objectives?
Where to start? So we're kind of moving to a model now where, as much as my creative team will hate me for saying this, where we're trying to fuel every kind of campaign, not just from the media planning. It goes, I suppose this is the big point, is intent data needs to go beyond just media planning. It needs to kind of go into the content strategy and the kind of the whole campaign architecture. So it's kind of, it's as well using the TechTarget data, understanding who the vendors we need to be comparing ourselves against, what are the stories we need to be delivering against those guys. But understanding, I suppose, more of a programmatic level, what are the topics and the interests and the keywords that are really resonating with our audience. Because the thing we might be selling, as much as we think our particular version of IoT is the most fascinating thing in the world, it might not actually be the case. So sometimes we have to be a little bit creative and work out how we hijack a bit of a different story. So are there other topics or interests where we can start to build a bit of a narrative around that feed back into what we're actually trying to sell and what we're trying to promote? So that's kind of been a really interesting thing, and it's working with that TechTarget data again to kind of work out what are those kind of topics, keywords and trends we should be looking for, but also helping decide the type of asset as well. As much as someone might be excited about reading a white paper at the top of the funnel, it's pretty rare. So it's actually working out what are the things that really get the interaction, what's almost the clickbaity stuff that we know is starting to get really good traction in the TechTarget network, as well as in search trends as well and things like that. So it plays a huge part in the whole campaign planning, not just in the media planning itself.
Okay, so what we do at Veeam is we give all the enterprise sales managers access, a login to Priority Engine. Now, this is, of course, not to go in, and we briefed them very clearly on this. This is not to go in, look at the contacts, and think, great, I can call them up, book a meeting, create an opportunity, closed one, job done. It's not that at all. It's to support them with their account planning, and also look within their 25 key accounts, which accounts are most active and perhaps which ones are of course, less active. So they have the logins. They log in every week, and I log in with them on our weekly calls. And we sort of talk through any new activity and perhaps any new contacts, and we go through the account plans, and we work together to sort of build that out. We've talked a bit about the different types of information that we get, but of course the install tech base, so we can work with our alliance partners. The competitive install base, so we can come up with potentially competitive pitching, and the intent, the sort of topic interest, so what they're actually genuinely looking at, not what we want to sort of force, the messages we want to force onto them. Within the enterprise in Veeam, we have, I think it's about 500 accounts, half of which are managed and half are unmanaged. And it's one of my key jobs to drive interest and awareness and generate kind of high-quality leads from the incubation pot. So what we do is we plug in the incubation account list into Priority Engine, and hey presto, at the top of the list, it's showing some accounts with some real intent and interest in purchasing, not necessarily purchasing, but they're going down the sort of the buying cycle. So I'll work closely with the sales director, and we'll say, okay, these 5 accounts here are showing some really high buying signals. We need to move them out of this unmanaged pot and give them to an account manager to start nurturing, from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective. So that's another example. Another one is when the sales teams log in, if there's a happy customer, it's very easy in technology to sort of move on to the next one, the next net new sale. If they can see a happy customer that's looking at other vendors, that should start sending some alarm signals that perhaps all isn't happy, and why have they got their full data back up with Veeam, but they're looking at a competitor? So some red flags there. And I guess I think that covers it off.
Yeah, you had mentioned that some of the plans for this coming years, using the intent to fuel plans for events and really crafting events specific to market intent. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So it's not my role. One of my colleagues runs the events in the UK and Ireland. So, for example, we were at Cloud Expo last week. So rather than do a standard event follow-up where you might send an email and this is all a bit 1990s marketing, but send an email and follow up with a telephone call. What we're doing, or what we're planning on doing, is a roadmap type activity with TechTarget, is plugging these organizations into the account lists within Priority Engine, and then using that as a much more intelligent way to follow up. So shaping the conversation based on their topic interests, on the vendor interest, perhaps, if it's competitive pitching. And again, I've laboured the point a bit, but looking at the installed technology to just understand more about the account and get a much more rounded understanding of the account, rather than just going in with that sort of, hi, it's Dave from Veeam, would you like to buy our software?
And as far as demand generation is concerned, how is Intent playing a role in that?
It's playing a huge part for us in terms of how we kind of continue to try and build engines for our clients. So we run kind of multiple, at any one time, always on demand generation programs. And it's just become a huge part of that initial setup. So we obviously know what our target addressable market needs to look like. We know what we need to be talking about, but how do we really fuel intent into that? And how does that need to feed its way all the way through our marketing automation program and start to help sales conversations as well? And it's kind of getting everyone in the room at the very beginning and understanding what everyone's looking for and what are the type of conversation starters that sales are looking for. Because I don't know how every salesman likes to approach a call, but I want to be able to give him as much or her as much information as possible to go and have a really successful conversation. And with so much data available, we can sometimes get it a bit confused, and we can go, look, everything's here. I know everything about that person, right down to where they live and what time they walk the dog. But that's not necessarily how they want to start a conversation. So intent has played a part in kind of siphoning out some of the noise and making sure we're being relevant and passing things through to that account manager or that salesperson to have a really good conversation. But equally, all that cool data, all those kind of insights, the things that are influencing them, I can kind of put that through the marketing automation program as well and make sure I get higher response rates, click rates, open rates, all those bits and pieces as well. But the challenge really is kind of making that go full circle. So we've done one round and hopefully a second round, but how do we keep learning from that and feeding back with sales as to what is actually working? Did we get it right? Because invariably, they always blame us if it goes wrong. So how do I kind of fuel that, again, to go for the second round or the third round and then bring in another set of data that's going to be more relevant as well to that journey? So the ideal scenario is always kind of trying to make it refined and perfect all the time. But yeah, intent can kind of play such a huge part in planning our demand gen programs.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is fairly brief. So we run a number of demand generation campaigns with and through TechTarget. And of course, the content and the insights that we get really sort of help shape the outcomes and the deliverables, and really sort of help accelerate that side of things as well. And I mean, I can't give you the exact figure, but influence pipeline, I'm sure, again, hopefully most of you are aware of what I'm talking of. TechTarget campaign influence pipeline from the past 9 months, I think, is over $2 million, which I know probably doesn't give you a lot of context because you might not know, some of the targets for Veeam, but it's a significant amount. So whilst the content side of things and the campaign might not be, of course, the only thing that these people are seeing, it's certainly an important part, and it's certainly helping influence the buying process and is creating a significant amount of marketing influence pipeline for us with our demand generation activities.
Thank you. Now, we heard in the previous presentation from Sarah about how content marketing really helps shape our marketing and sales response accordingly. How important is content marketing for you in this marketing model?
Yeah, I can go first. I mean, I did have a bit of a pre-prepared answer for this, but Sarah's clearly going to blow me out of the water with the fantastic presentation from earlier. Content is king. Everyone knows this. It's really important to align, as Sarah's been through very well, the different types of content to the buyer journey. So we obviously do this with TechTarget. We did the content audit, I think, albeit a slightly perhaps trimmed down version, and I think we need to perhaps re-engage with that. But certainly a comprehensive content audit, looking at the sort of the more eye-catching interest piece for the beginning of the cycle, and the more sort of ROI calculator, case study, sort of facts and figures for the end of the cycle. And working with TechTarget and Voula and the team, it's been really great to sort of develop our content, understand what we've got, do the audit, and use it in a better way to engage our audiences.
I was going to completely echo that. Content is absolutely king. So again, much to the detriment of the creative team that we have, I like numbers. I like driving as many numbers through the funnel as I possibly can, and I don't really care sometimes how that happens, but that's not necessarily the right etiquette, obviously. So it's kind of interesting, because top of the funnel is kind of a really challenging piece. Is how do we get those kind of snackable bits of content that you referred earlier that are essentially going to get our hook into the campaign, and then you could sometimes trick yourself into going, I can just deliver that all the way through to the bottom of the funnel and get loads of leads, and we're all happy. Marketing done its job.
But there are certain examples where, a salesperson can pick up the phone and go, this person read 6 infographics and they have no idea who we are. And that's kind of sometimes where we can get stuff confused. And sometimes that content, that meaty white paper that's sat in the middle of the panel, or that solution guide, or that practice leadership, the people that read that, there might have been a less of an open rate, less of a click rate, but they're the ones who will have the best conversation with sales teams. So it's a difficult one, because sometimes we can get kind of caught in the vanity metrics of it, and that's why that feedback loop is just vital. Because if they like 6 infographics and they hate me, then it's your fault. So look at all the clicks. Content is still key. We still have to put that weighty stuff in. It still has to be really relevant, and it has to introduce the brand as this is why we're different and unique, and this is why we're going to really help you.
And I think just the other thing to add to my answer was, obviously we've discussed about marketing and how marketing plays a role in the content side of things, but with giving the enterprise sales team access to a TechTarget priority agent login, they can then formulate their own business development side of content. So rather than again just going with a generic piece that they think might be really interesting, they can use the insights that we get from priority agent, and they can shape the content that they use for their outreach as well.
Thank you very much. I think we have about 10 minutes until the end of the session, so I'd like to open up to questions.
Yeah, good question. So there is sometimes an overlap, and it's kind of really nice to see that. It kind of validates that we're talking to the right people. Going back to the deal acceleration program I talked about, what we were trying to do, let me go back a step. Some of the sales teams are more comfortable talking to the day-to-day technical contact. What we were trying to do is go higher and wider, so to a more senior audience. And one thing that TechTarget helped within the deal acceleration, and is helping now with the same campaign it's the net new, is generating sort of new people that they haven't even considered. But what's interesting is some of them might not be so relevant, but some of them are absolutely key.
I've got one particular example we did for Jitsu. I suppose that's the key thing is especially as an agency, we have to be seen as, we have to be agile, we have to be kind of always on the pulse and see what's changing and what's moving. And one thing we did particularly notice on the producing campaign, probably like 2 years ago, honestly, was a lot of the content they had around a particular subject. I'm almost certain this is my go-to thing. I think it was around hyper-converged infrastructure, which is highly searchable, obviously. They had all this kind of top of funnel content around that, and it's just, it's not really that an exciting story. In all honesty, how can we try and change this a little bit? I think it was kind of noticing from intent data, again, how that can change everything. There's different angles, there's different things that are talking on exactly the same subject. I just need to change and tweak how we are literally positioning this top of funnel content. So I suppose that's an example of how intent has influenced the campaign, and we had to go back and say, we need to change this now, because you could keep this out in market another 6 months and no one would even notice. So you have to kind of switch onto something that is what people are looking for and is timely and relevant to what their behaviour is now, as opposed to what you think their behaviour is now. So again, it has to be agile. You have to kind of feed that data in to change whatever you're doing at any one time.
I would add to that, how helpful is having access to high-level market trends from different partners and publishers?
Is that helpful for your long-term, market strategy and helping you identify the best entry points for particular clients in the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, depending on the amount of content the client's got, we need to kind of work out how many of those entry points we're going to work on. So, is there a topic on security? Is there a topic on networking? Is there a topic on something else? And then it's kind of understanding from all those different providers, what are the kind of keywords and stories that kind of fit around that? What's trending at the moment? Who are the competitors in the market who are influencing the most stories, getting the most engagement and content? And that needs to completely feed into the planning and the strategy of where we go as well. Because again, much to Hester to our creative team, that one person's idea doesn't necessarily represent the full market. So we have to kind of take those insights and make sure it feeds into what we're doing, make ourselves relevant.
Let me think. I think certainly some of the insights that we get from TechTarget, we do sort of feed into our different teams within the company, not just the marketing organisation, but not just the field marketing organisation, but the sales, the competitive insights. We sort of say these vendors are popping up. Haven't actually heard them, of course, to be honest, but they're sort of appearing in a lot of different places. So creating kind of internal pitch or battle cards, if you like. Understanding different market trends, interests, intent that we get from TechTarget does sort of influence a number of different areas in our marketing, in our business. Can I answer that quickly? So we have used one or two vendors in the past, which will remain unnamed for today. Of course, we use our own internal Salesforce. The salesperson can literally go into TechTarget, ignoring Salesforce, and all the activity that's happened on contacts and all the assets that they've downloaded. So we have our internal systems as well, so Salesforce, Marketo, Google Analytics, and all the other systems, as I'm sure you can imagine. But we try and make it so they all complement each other. So rather than having them in isolation, so looking at one thing in Salesforce and using that, or just looking into TechTarget, we try and sort of merge it all and try and build a bigger picture.
Has it been a challenge for you to take all these disparate sources and amalgamate them in a comprehensive aggregate view?
Depends on the salesperson. We were sort of looking into new ways of how we do that. As with anything, as with Sarah was saying, the content quality doesn't just happen. You need to get a proper solution. But we are sort of improving the way that we aggregate the information.
Yeah.
I see my role as generating a lower quality of, higher quality, lower volume. So my aim in the enterprise space with our main accounts is to generate high quality engagement. So whether that's executive engagement, so dinners, roundtables, things like that, small in-person events, quality appointments booked, etc., etc. There are other teams, of course. There's the sort of mid-market team that look at the sort of mid-sized accounts that do a huge amount of demand generation and looking at sort of net new leads, responses, MQLs, SQLs, etc. We've got a sort of shared services team that do a lot as well, using TechTarget, of course, and other marketing strategies and tactics that try and generate these. But for me personally, it's all about the sort of, we get this right for the last time, high quality, lower quantity.
Thank you both again for sharing your insight and experiences. Do stop by the Direction group and chat with Matt at the break. And thank you very much. I think we have time.